Alright, hello. I want to do a video because about typing. And I realized that I'm not really, at first I was thinking, I don't really think I'm into learning how to do OPS typing. But then I think it's more the subjects that are chosen. I'm not really into, because I do have Demon Play, although it's third. And I have tried it. I definitely have used my Play to try to do some typing, but I'm not really into watching, because you do have to watch a lot of videos. And yeah, I realized a few things. So it depends on the interview, right? So I do think when Dave and Shan when they used to do them together, and even when they do them separate, they curated the videos and they edited the parts that really show the certain function or certain thing that they're looking at. And but when you're watching, you have to find that yourself, And so to do that, you have to watch a lot, because I do think the interviews can be very interesting when you find those parts, when you find when they're talking, like when they're triggered, or when they're in a demon state, or when I don't know, they're telling a good story. And not all of them are, obviously not all the clips are super interesting. They're just like any other, but they still show a part. So I decided that I was just going to type what I want. In doing so, I'm not going to have a true answer, because I'm just starting out, and I'm not just starting out, but I haven't been practicing since I started learning OPS. So yeah. So what I decided to do was I decided I'm gonna type someone. I just want to know their type, and because I do like the little insights you can get about people. So I thought I'm gonna choose someone that I like, and I'm gonna watch some other interviews and really just sit with them. So I chose Sam Rockwell. He's an actor that, and I'm not into, I haven't even practiced, but how to edit in clips, I haven't practiced. So I am not going to be editing clips. I might look for a couple interviews to put down, maybe one, because here's the thing. I love Sam Rockwell. He's my favorite actor, and one of my favorite actors, if not my favorite actor. And I really this is what I notice, okay? So when you're very young, you have like celebrity crushes, and that can change and rotate as you get older. But once I was about my early 20s, I found Sam Rockwell, and I was like, he was my celebrity crush. And not only that, he was an amazing actor. And so I just kind of would watch movies that he was in, and they were interesting. Usually he was in movies that looked like they would be interesting, or even if I was like, okay, I don't know if I would have watched it otherwise, it could be interesting, I'm not sure. But he was in it, I would watch it, and it would be great, and he would be great. Always does a good job, and whether or not the movie's great, he does a good job, and he's usually in good movies. And he was my celebrity crush since like my early 20s, and honestly, when you get older, you don't have any, or I don't have any more celebrity crushes. I have no celebrity crushes. I mean, there's celebrities I think are attractive, but no celebrity crush. So Sam Rockwell has pretty much been, I guess, my celebrity crush since then. I still find him to be quite attractive man. So I decided I was going to watch interviews of him, and so the interviews I watched were, looks like he was on Jimmy Kimmel quite a few times. I found a lot of those. So knowing Jimmy Kimmel's an ESFP, I liked going in with the knowledge, knowing who the interviewer was, their type was, and comparing them. I did see there was one video where he was going through his different roles and just commenting on them. It was just him. And that one I felt like, I wasn't too hot for. And then I watched Jimmy Kimmel, and I watched a couple Jimmy Kimmels. Then I purposely looked for Jimmy Fallon because there was one, like, he likes to dance, or he's a good dancer, and there's a lot of videos of him dancing, which I also really love about him. But and Jimmy Kimmel, not Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon. That's why I think I blended their names. Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon. I think also dances a little bit. So anyway, when I put in Sam Rockwell and Jimmy Fallon, I found a lot of clips of Sam just dancing. So then I had to look for the interviews, and that was, I don't know, I feel like I've seen enough clips of him dancing. There was an interview associated with that, but they were probably buried down somewhere. So I found a Jimmy Fallon interview or two, maybe at least one, that I watched. And there was one that I really liked of him and Bryan Cranston, who is ESFP, but also I believe he's an extrovert. He's definitely play first. You know what? I can't remember if he's an extrovert. Let me look it up. Because I don't want to. I'd like to settle that right now. But that being said, I watched him and I gathered a type, I think, although not the full 512. I didn't find quite what I was looking for. Okay, so let me look for. What am I gonna look for again? Bryan Cranston. Okay, there he is. Oh, he's last. He's an introvert. Okay, but he's play first. So play first people, even second, feel like extroverts to me because I have consumed sleep. So, yeah, I like him a lot. And watching him with Sam, I just was like, Bryan, you're amazing. I love you. So, and I also really love Sam. And one thing I noticed about him, even when I was younger and I first watched him in interviews, I remember seeing him. He's just super chill and laid back. And, if I were to type him in Enneagram, I would type him as a 9. Probably 9-winged 1. Maybe 9-winged 8. I don't know. I don't, 9 is good enough for me. So, anyway, I noticed with him and Bryan that Bryan was just there was a difference, okay? And, okay, let me go back to his other interviews. Okay, sorry. So, with Jimmy Kimmel, the interviews I watched first, and all the interviews I watched of him, anytime he told a story, all he did was talk about other people. And I was just amazed, and I was like, and I think that myself, I'm Savior FI, a CFI, but even being double decider, telling stories about other people, or just someone saying, if there's a reason for me to talk about someone, or someone asks me about someone, but I find that very difficult, and also I thought, let me try it. Let me try talking about others, and it feels like I shouldn't be doing that, when you talk about others, that you're sort of, because when I do, I'm describing someone, but it's from my point of view, and I don't know. Then if you talk about stuff they've done or something that happened, that's like you're spilling the beans about them. And of course, I do talk about things that have happened. I don't know that I name names. Being an observer, I don't think I name names unless, a lot of times I'll say, oh, my coworker. And then if I'm telling the same person a story and it's like, oh, remember that, I'll say, remember that coworker I was telling you about before? And it gets confusing for them if I don't put a name to it. But that's hard for me. It's hard for me to do that, to label the person. So I was really amazed at his ability to do that. And I just thought, wow, that's So a problem I had with watching his interviews was I felt like, what do I know about him? And I know things about him because like I said, I've liked him since my early 20s, but I was amazed. Honestly, I was like, and I knew he was kind of friends, and I didn't know, like, I wasn't even thinking number 4, but I knew his friends were a big part of his life. So if I had a guess before even trying to do this official typing, I would have probably guessed a 2 or a 4. But when I was watching his videos, that's when I do remember him being very laid back, but I don't, and him being, like, his friends being important to him, but I do not remember that all he did was talk about other people. And it's like, what did I like about him? Now I do still like him. I find him to be an attractive man, and maybe it's, you know, because the type I think I've come up with him, it's like, okay, maybe it makes sense why I find him attractive. But I was surprised at how much I wasn't really learning about him. And I'm like, am I going to find that interview where he talked about that moment of his life that was hard, that was difficult? And honestly, it was just a lot of what I found, and I didn't dig too deep because I also knew a lot about him, but I could not, all I found was him talking about his roles and people he worked with. It was all about people he worked with. And then I watched one with him and Drew Barrymore, which really solidified that he was a number 4, which I was feeling anyway. I was like, he seems like a number 4. Because I was thinking, okay, when I noticed I wasn't learning about him, and I thought, oh, he seems super savior DE. And I was getting TE, not FE. You know, feminine TE. He seems kind of a laid back. He was on the Drew Barrymore show, and she's a number 4. And, you know, she was, first of all, they have done like 2 movies together, and like back in the day, they did Confessions of a Dangerous Mind and Charlie's Angels, at least those 2 that I know of. And so they've been friends ever since. And so she was like, yeah, you know, when she introduced him as her good friend. And so when she brought him on, she was her cuddly self and touchy-feely self. And he was all in, like, I felt like, are they a couple? Like, I knew he had a girlfriend, but it's almost like they could be a couple, you know? I mean, like, the hug, kiss, there was a lot of kissing, and then when she, like, kept touching him and put her hand on his knee, he was right in it. And, so, it wasn't like that one guy that Dave and Shan had where, like, they got on the floor, but she didn't attempt to bring Sam on the floor. I'm guessing he would have been game. But they were very close together and right in each other's eyes the whole time, and her arms like around, you know, and then his arm, and then, and I don't know that his arm was like up here, but it was like her over here, and then him like this way, and then there was her touching the leg, and him just bending it out toward her, and just letting her, and she was even going up by the thigh, you know. Anyway, it was like very close and intimate, and I felt like it solidified number 4 for me. I was feeling that anyway. I didn't sense he was generalized either, because he was just talking about his movie roles. But the fact that all he did was talk about other people, and I didn't feel like I learned much about him or things that bothered him, I went with decider, so savior, single decider with feminine TE at the top. And, you know, he was just a chill guy. He wasn't, he was friendly, but he wasn't like super emotional. And I'm trying to think if FEs are emotional, but he didn't even have a little outburst of like emotion. You know, I felt like it felt very controlled emotions. Although he wasn't like blank face. You know, I think his feminine TE was, he was easygoing and cool. So, however, when I watched him with Bryan Cranston, I thought, now Bryan Cranston is cool compared to Sam. I mean, it was very like, yeah, they were both, I mean, they're both play, but there was something about Bryan Cranston that felt so much different. And I don't really have a solidified feeling on what that is. I was kind of going with Double Decider because it seems like this openness that I think I'm very attracted to. It's like this openness, and they were doing impressions, and so like Brian was like diving right in, and which is play, and Sam was too, but it was a different vibe, and I think I'll link that one because that was probably my favorite one to watch. The Drew Barrymore one was good as well because of the Friends thing, but I do like the Bryan Cranston one. I don't know if I'll do both. I'll definitely do Bryan. So another thing I noticed is that he was relaying stories that happened. So he was kind of saying, this is what happened, and giving examples. And so he felt very SE to me, but, that was all his stories were about other people. When he talked about other people, it was about stories about them, of him working with them. And I didn't feel lost at all. I didn't feel like he jumped. So I felt very SE to me. And also, the reason why also on Single Decider, that kind of was a cross-check for Double Observer, was he talked about his girlfriend that he's had for 17 years. And she's an actress, and he said when they went on a first date, he actually was going to go out on another date, apparently that same day. And he was talking about his backup plan, and he said he had a backup plan, and that, they had their first date, and it went well, and she was like, hey, let's go, because it was a day date. And he was like, a day date? He thought that was like, okay. They went to a museum or something, I think. And he was like, okay, whatever. But he didn't, and then she was like, wow, this went so well, let's go get drinks. He was like, in his mind thinking, I have another date. And he's like, well, let me go, I have to, and he made some excuse about a phone call. But I think she knew, or I don't know if she knew or he told her later on, but so she knows now. And so she gives him grief about having a backup plan. So I felt like that's not something I would do as lead SE. Like, I don't plan. I rarely am going to say, okay, I want this date and that date, because, I'm more thinking, I want this, if this is a good date, I want it to last, and I want to be in the moment for it. So I wouldn't plan another one. I have filled up my days of planning, but it's more rare for me. And it's been, it's not a typical thing. I have done that, and I have over-planned. So when I do plan, I've over-planned. Because I am consumed sleep. I filled up my day, and it was too much for me. So it was, that's another thing. It's like, that seems like too much. First of all, to plan that and to do that much. So I don't know, those are my cross-checks. I am going to say, I'm building up my tolerance to typing, and I'm so learning it, and I'm maybe not getting enough cross-checks, but that's what I have. I'm having TESE, so lead play. I'm going to say MF, so masculine sensory. I didn't feel lost. I don't know if he was like, with his memory, because I feel like I'm, even with other double feminine ESFPs, I feel like I'm a little more hard with sensory than sometimes I see some double feminines. I'm like, I don't know, but maybe it's when they're with someone else who's guiding it, the conversation. I don't know. Either way, I didn't feel like I was very lost in the conversation, and there was a point where he kind of did some yelling, and I felt like shoving with a sensory, but he wasn't like, I don't know. I don't know, I keep saying I don't know, because I don't feel like I'm very good at typing. I definitely feel confident on feminine TE. And I'm going to say masculine sensory. So MF, TE, SE, so an ENTJ with play first. And I'm going to leave it at that. I do think he was an energy dom. So he's going to have either consume or sleep last. I'm sorry. No, energy dom would be blast last. That's what I was thinking at energy dom, which would mean blast last. So, but I didn't want to really go beyond play, but I would say if I would go to the next step, that would be my guess is blast last, and then I would probably look for energy dom and blast last kind of stuff. Okay, so since my voice is going, because I'm getting over this allergy sickness thing, I'm going to end it. Oh, I did want to say one more thing. Okay, can I talk now? So the next person, what I did want to say is I would like to try typing Sebastian Maniscalco next. If I don't, it will be because I'm having a hard time. And I have tried to type him before. And but I think I'm having a different mindset now and strategy. So we'll see if it works. But I have failed before. And but he's someone I've heard him speak so many times. I've seen his comedy shows. I've listened to his podcast so many times. I've seen interviews with him, but mostly his podcast, which is a good place to go. Because yeah, he's chill and he's also comfortable telling what irritates him. But I think I'll look at a few interviews as well. And that's my plan, is to type Sebastian Maniscalco next. He's one of my favorite comedians, if not my favorite comedian. I've loved him for so long. Now, I've gotten out of listening to his podcast, and I didn't go to his last tour. He got really big. So that's all I'm going to say. He got really big. But I love Sebastian. So that's my goal, is to type Sebastian next time, and see you later.